Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 17th December. The news items which we have picked up from the Hindu are these 10. We'll discuss them in detail. The first one, note ban, no interim relief from Supreme Court. So this is regarding the demonetization case which came before a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court headed by Chief Justice of India, Justice T.S. Thakur. Presently, this 3-judge bench has referred this matter to a 5-judge constitutional bench. Earlier too, we had discussed the news that the bench had said that if it is a matter of important public importance as such or requires constitutional questions to be answered, then it will be referred to a larger bench too. So, constitutional cases are looked into by larger benches, 5-judge bench, 7-judge bench. So, presently a 5-judge constitutional bench has been set up. So, these questions, 10 questions which were framed by the Supreme Court this month only few days back. So, that those questions now will be referred to this larger constitutional bench. In terms of interim relief, the Supreme Court present bench has said that no interim relief presently would be provided. Earlier too, we had discussed at the time of demonetization in November that Supreme Court refused to put a stay on demonetization process. Presently too, it says that the Supreme Court trusts that the government is the best judge of its own economic and fiscal policies. So, putting its trust in the government, they are not interfering in this matter, not providing interim relief as well. Plus, the government itself has also made assurances. One question before this bench was also regarding DCCBs, District Central Cooperative Banks. So, these District Central Cooperative Banks had said that we have been kept out of the demonetization process because banks are the ones at which exchange can take place and even deposits are being taken. But DCCBs have been left out, cooperative banks. Earlier, there was one complete article which we have discussed. So, this is all finally coming to this. So, you should know about entire demonetization case which is going on to, which has been discussed over a period of time. I'm just putting in the points here again. So, this DCCBs, when they made this question, the government at that point of time had said that DCCBs are under the state government. So, they don't have, there's no sufficient control over them. Their KYC norms, how well they are followed is not known. What is KYC is very important because UPSC generally has this habit of asking prelims questions based on some such simple terms. Simple basic questions. So anybody who is doing the newspaper in detail, studying about everything that is coming forth and framing the line of thought over a period of time, that like how we are discussing this case. So over a period of time, you know everything about it. So now you know DCCBs is obvious. KYC is know your customer. So know your customer norms. These terms which come often in news, it becomes obvious to you. So these terms then are the ones which are asked. And the larger understanding which you get is important for mains. So discussing news is not just for prelims, it is there for both prelims and mains. And this, many a times you see that the topics in editorials are those which you have already discussed in news. Then there's nothing much to be discussed there. So that is also a positive point. Because if you do your newspapers thoroughly, everything else becomes a cakewalk, even the editorials, articles, plus also the mains based questions, and prelims anyway becomes a cakewalk. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, that these simple terms then you are obvious. So you can easily attempt current affairs based questions if you are doing current affairs in detail, in depth like this. So this KYC norms are not well maintained by DCCBs. That was one reason the state government gave for not including them, and they are under state government control. So they do not have effective control on them from the central government. So they had their own reasonings. But then presently the government has given a relief. They said that the 8,000 crore which have been collected by these DCCBs all over the country from 10th November to 14th November, just after demonetization. So that deposit would be allowed by the RBI, and that exchange would take place. So they will be given fresh currency in lieu of that. So this aspect has been given, but of course this will be 100% audited. The KYC of the account holders will be checked by the NABARD, National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development, and then it would go forward. So it is also important that DCCBs work majorly in rural areas where they are more prominent, because there are no private sector banks of that in that remote area. So these are the ones which provide services, banking services there. So if they are excluded, even at that time it was the start of the Rabi season. So farmers were sowing crops. They depend on DCCBs. So that was also justification given by them that we cannot be excluded from this process. Where would the rural population then go for exchange and for having their deposits done? Now looking at the questions which have been framed by this 3-judge bench and have been will be put forth before this larger 5-judge constitutional bench. We have gone through them. They were provided few days back by the Supreme Court 3-judge bench. We'll discuss them once again in detail. The first one is this November 8 demonetization notification ultra vires, means illegal, out of the purview, or ultra vires of section 26(2) of the RBI Act. So section 26(2) of the RBI Act, we have already discussed, is one which allows the government, RBI, under RBI Act to withdraw some currency. So withdraw some currency because government needs to demonetize some currency, like old notes, soil notes are demonetized. So that power is provided to the RBI under section 26(2). But this demonetization notification is of a much larger picture, a much larger question. So is this also allowed under section 26(2) or is this ultra vires? That question is there. Second question is that does this section 26(2) suffer from excessive delegation? In section 26(2) has been provided under RBI Act for minimal purposes, but then it is not specifically mentioned. So is this ultra vires of excessive? Is this a case of excessive delegation? So excessive delegation means delegation is allowed. Delegation means one person allowing somebody else to do his work. Here delegation which is spoken of is delegation from the legislature to the executive. So legislature makes laws and then to put them into effect, executive is given those powers. So in minor details, filling up the details, as such a broad delegation is done that this is the law, within it whatever rules, regulations you need to make, the executive can make. So that is delegation by the legislature. But this is case of excessive delegation. That is the question, because this is a much larger question. 86% of the amount of currency in the economy has been completely demonetized. So that is why is this excessive delegation that has been done under section 26(2), because it is unrestricted. So that is the second question. Then the third question, is this notification foul of Article 14 and 19? So Article 14 is right to equality and Article 19 is right to freedom under the Indian Constitution. So this Article 14 equality is violated, right to equality, because this notification, demonetization notification, is segregating or discriminating between bank account holders and non-bank account holders. So it's not your, you're not violating any law if you're not having a bank account. But those who have not had a bank account and have cash with them are being discriminated against substantially, as against the bank account holder. So that is the question. Article 19, right to freedom. Freedom of the people is restricted because of this demonetization notification. They are clueless now. All the rich and the poor came at the same level in a strike. So that right to freedom has been violated. That is also a question. Then fourth one is restriction on withdrawal of funds. Violates Article 14 and 19. That restrictions are being placed, that how much amount you can withdraw from your account. So that is also violating. Fifth question is, does the implementation of November 8 notification suffer from procedural and substantive unreasonableness? Means, is this system which has been used, demonetization process, is this process allowed? Procedure is allowed. Is it unreasonable? And substantive unreasonableness in the sense that what is the purpose which is being served? So procedure is also unreasonable, or substance of the matter is also unreasonable. That is also a question. So these will be discussed before the judiciary. Then next is it violating Article 300A? 300A is right to property. You should remember, fundamental right to property was there, but that was deleted, and now it is only a constitutional right, not a fundamental, but under the constitution only, under Article 300A. So this right to property, cash which you have, is also your property. It's a very important property you have. So is this demonetization notification violating your right to property? So that is being questioned. Next is exclusion of DCCBs that we just discussed, that they are excluded from exchange, deposits and withdrawal. So is this discrimination? Then what is the scope of judicial review? Can judiciary review fiscal and economic policies of the government? That is also question framed. And next is demonetization. Can it be brought only by parliamentary statute? So this is linked to this excessive delegation, that parliament itself should make a law on this matter. And finally, writ petitions with various political parties filed before the judiciary, are they acceptable under Article 32? So writ immediate relief which is sought from the Supreme Court. So is this maintainable or not? That is a question. So these are the questions. We'll hear more about them. So you should know about them. Quite often it will be coming in news when the judiciary hears the case. Next article is RBI opposes proposal to set up separate payment regulator. So we know that the government wants to promote digital payments. It had set up a complete 11-member committee on digital payments headed by Finance Secretary Ratan Wadal. But this committee submitted its report too. This was submitted early in December 2016 recently. And this committee has suggested that there should be a independent body on digital payments, retail payments. So Payment Regulatory Board will be a body which would be set up, is its suggestion, for retail payments. So for wholesale payments, systematically important payment system, RBI will be the regulator, and for retail payments, this new Payment Regulatory Board should be the regulator. So this suggestion, this recommendation which has been given by this committee has also sought RBI's views on the matter. So RBI's opinion is also included after the recommendation in the same report submitted. So RBI in its views has said that this is not desirable. The entire system of payments should be under one regulator, that is RBI. So even if PRB is set up, it should be a body under RBI and not an independent body outside RBI. So that is its suggestion. It also says that the global experience has been that both should be under the central bank only, because it helps in interconnectivity with between the payment system. So that is required. Also the central bank is the lender of the last resort. So then central bank should have everything under its purview, because eventually it will come to the central bank as a lender seeking loans or any requirement which is there. So that is why RBI said that not an independent body, but if you want a separate body, under RBI only. So we'll see what the government does on this matter too. We are seeing that digital payments are being promoted. Presently, digital payments are only 20% of all transactions in the economy. Even India's cash to GDP ratio is quite high. So what is this cash to GDP ratio? Is GDP, we have already discussed quite often now. So GDP is gross domestic product, total value of all goods and services produced in an economy. So how much of this GDP is in cash form? So for India, it is as high as 12%. Which is one of the highest in the world. Global average is only 4%. So we need to reduce this. So the government has the goal of reducing its cash to GDP ratio by half. So they target 6% as cash to GDP ratio. So we'll see how this goes forward, how we can increase digital transactions, reduce cash, presence of cash, monetary money as such in the economy. Next article is Environment Ministry draft rules on sales of pet. So now Environment Ministry has just set up draft rules. So these draft rules have been put forth in the public domain, and then the public can give their suggestions on it, and after that, till a month this time frame is given, give your comments, and then after that the final rules will be drafted and notified. So after rules are notified, they become effective. So this is the process which is generally followed. Also bills are put into public domain, draft bills are prepared, they put in public domain, the comments are taken, then the government finalizes the bill, and then that bill is put before the parliament. Of course, the government has full power. Environment Ministry presently also has full power to decide what would be the rules, but this is a democratic process which is initiated and which is followed in these days. So that is also appreciated. So this draft rules which have been framed right now, it is calling for all shops selling pets to have to compulsorily register with State Animal Welfare Board. So this one point would be there because it is seen that Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act has been implemented since 1960, but then the pet shops and the status of conditions of pets in these shops, the cages where they are put, the food nutrition requirement, the veterinary services which are provided to them have to be regulated. There is no regulation in this matter, is what the Environment Minister says. So that is why this initiative has been taken. So they should maintain records of how much sales took place, how many deaths took place, a report about sick animals. So this all record has to be maintained by them. So space requirements would also be there, that how much space would be provided to these pet animals. Pet owners will not come under the purview. So that is clarified by the Environment Ministry. So this is just initiation, draft rules. Next is, now states can give green clearance to most real estate projects. So for all building and real estate projects of higher area, they were earlier assessed and given clearance, environment impact clearance, by the central government. So an EIA, environment impact assessment, is required for all projects, building and real estate projects. So presently this has been now delegated over. So for projects whose area is between 20,000 to 3 lakh square meters, they would no longer come under the central government. The states will have the clearances given. So the Environment Ministry has established this group of qualified building environment auditors. So they have been empaneled. There's a complete panel here. So they would assess and certify building projects now. So this is there. Plus for projects which are less than 20,000 square meters, for them a self-declaration is required. But while they are constructing like 5,000 to 20,000 square meters, these smaller projects, while construction is taking place, environment norms have to be followed while constructing and also during maintenance. So that is there. So this is the initiative taken. The next news item is educating a nation. So this is regarding female education, because it is said if you educate a female, you educate an entire family, you educate the entire nation. But if you educate a man, it is educating an individual. So here we need to put forth initiatives to increase the enrollment and reduce the dropout rates in girl child education. So we see that number of girls dropping out is significantly high, and even at higher stages. So that is the time when they are taken over as helping in the domestic work in houses. So this trend needs to change. The understanding that female being educated is also important. It's not just that marriage is done, ends, that is it, that is what is required for a female. So initiatives here have been taken. The government has also started off with its Beti Bachao Beti Padhao. So this initiative also takes into consideration about the importance of education for women. One point which is highlighted is that dropout rates of girls in Bihar is much lower than national average. The other states like Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh and northeastern states are showing high dropout rates. So this is one aspect, because Bihar literacy rate is the lowest, but then dropout rates of girls is not so low. So that is heartening. But then the state with the highest dropout rate among girls is Mizoram with 23.93% dropout rate. So this is through the annual status of education report of 2015. So this gives the complete details. So this is regarding the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao also, which we had discussed earlier too. So it's early registration of pregnancy done, institutional deliveries ensured. Then the panchayats have these Gudda Guddi boards. So number of newborn boys and girls are put forth every month on this. Then child marriages, a check is put on that. Panchayats are held responsible for ensuring that no child marriage takes place. Then even an account is opened. This is Sukanya Samriddhi account. So in the name of the girl, this account is opened and deposits are taken into that. The government provides a interest rate of 9.1% on this for savings accounts. No income tax is applicable on this. So that is good. 50% of the money can be withdrawn after 18 years. An account remains till the girl attains the age of 21 years. So these initiatives have been taken by the government to assist in ensuring that female is educated, females, female feticide, as we say, that is also restricted. So Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao, that is the purpose. Then the next news item is China slams India over invite to Dalai Lama at Rashtrapati Bhavan. So Dalai Lama is the Tibetan spiritual leader. We have heard about him earlier too. Earlier it was with respect to his visit to Mongolia. So in Mongolia his visit had also created a furor. China blocked its access. Mongolia is a landlocked country between Russia and China. So China blocked its access because it is dependent on China for its essential commodities. Also the exchange takes place, trade takes place here. Mongolia had also asked India for help in this matter. But then this also has not been liked by China, that rather than easing the relations, it is aggravating by asking for help from India. So now India is also being questioned by China, because Dalai Lama was invited to Rashtrapati Bhavan. This was Kailash Satyarthi, who is Nobel Peace Prize winner. He had initiated a session on laureates and leaders for Children Summit. So he has his Children's Foundation for child education is the purpose for which he was awarded Nobel Prize to. So this session in which Dalai Lama was also invited and he attended, is not liked by China. So China wants no importance being given who they consider as a separatist leader, that in the name of religion he is undertaking separatist activities trying to separate Tibet from China. So India has given asylum to Dalai Lama in 1959. We already know about that. After 1959, 1962 we had the India-China war. But Dalai Lama and many from Tibet are refugees here in India. So that is, there's no denial to that. But China still raises its voice now. If we look at Aadhaar to be pivot of payments. So this is Aadhaar enabled payment systems. We have already discussed this earlier. So this is using an Aadhaar number. You have to provide your Aadhaar number. You have to provide your biometric information, a thumbprint or an iris recognition. And with that, the account in which you want to make the payment can be done. So you have to have a Jan Dhan account. So bank account is there and you have just an Aadhaar number. So payments can be taken. So this Aadhaar enabled payment systems is in place. So the person who is taking this payment, any shop or any authority, that needs to have this biometric device connected to a phone. So this is required because people do not have smartphones. Smartphone penetration is not high. So with smartphones you can use mobile wallets and various apps, but for those who don't have smartphones, this is the initiative which has been taken. So through your simple mobile phone too, you can have this Aadhaar enabled payment system done. So this is also part of the JAM Trinity, that you have Jan Dhan account, you have an Aadhaar and you have a simple mobile too. So this JAM Trinity is what Aadhaar enabled payment systems is based on. And this AEPS, Mr. Amitabh Kant, who is the CEO of Niti Aayog, he says that Aadhaar enabled payments are the biggest disruption in India. So generally we see UPSC also asking questions on this statement, that this is a statement discussed. So biggest disruption. So disruption means what here? That there are disruptive initiatives, economies. Means what? That there is a new economic system coming forth which disrupts the present economic system. So even online payments, online shopping, for example. So that is disrupting the market, the way markets function. Shopping takes place generally. So that traditional way is disrupted through these new initiatives. So that is called disruption. So that is what he is talking of. That AEPS disruption here is in a positive sense. So AEPS will be the biggest disruption in India. Then the next news item is Aleppo evacuation grinds to a halt. So this is regarding Aleppo in Syria. We have already discussed this in news quite often, even yesterday, that the Syrian government, Bashar al-Assad government, supported by pro-government rebels plus the Russian government, are fighting against the rebels in the opposition. So who are opposing the Bashar al-Assad regime, and they are supported by USA. So in this fight in Aleppo, the evacuation of civilians is what is important, and on that matter they are not agreeing because Syrian government is undertaking an offensive presently. So they are on an offense and they say that the evacuation which is allowed, people who are allowed to leave, they are not sure whether they are civilians or terrorists. They are seen to have bags full of weapons or something. So that also brings in doubts in the Syrian government's minds, and evacuation has been stalled presently, and both sides again are blaming each other. So that is there. So a ceasefire deal is required in this matter so that even at least the civilians can be evacuated effectively. So this is regarding Aleppo here in Syria. You should be knowing about it. And the various other cities are also shown here. And this Al-Raqqa, this is the capital, de facto capital of Islamic State, the terrorist organization in Syria. Palmyra also we have heard about. So this Aleppo, IS is not involved. Raqqa is the place. These grey areas are under IS. These pink areas are under the rebel groups who are opposing the Bashar al-Assad regime. So these are Syrian rebel groups. This Palmyra is the place where Syrian government is fighting against IS. So these two are IS related. Then the next news item is Myanmar resented Indian claims of hot pursuit in its territory. So this is in June 2015 that the Indian army was attacked, was under a heavy ambush by the separatists in Manipur. And after this, these separatists fled. The Indian army pursued them, and when they crossed the border and entered into Myanmar, the Indian army also went ahead, and in Myanmar actions were taken and the separatists were eliminated. So this afterwards, was trumpeted in the media by the government about the action taken by them in Myanmar. So this of course was resented by the Myanmar government, but they did not say anything out in the public. There was no statement coming from the Myanmar government then, but presently it has been highlighted that Myanmar government of course did not like it, but they wanted cordial relations with India, so did not raise the matter. And also this is not the first time that Indian government had undertaken such an initiative of hot pursuit. This is called hot pursuit, pursuing in another country's territory too. So this was earlier not highlighted, not put out in the media. So this was different, that it was prominently put out. Trumpeting, chest beating was done on this matter. So of course that was resented. And another thing is that former Myanmar government, the Junta rule, which was their military government, was pro-China. So there were these doubts too that that government was allowing such separatists who were anti-India, giving them shelter in their territory. But with the present democratically elected government, there is no doubt that separatists, anti-India separatists are given shelter in Myanmar. But still there would be people who unknowingly also enter and the government is not aware of them and no actions are being taken. So of course Indian government takes such initiatives, but then you are in another country's soil, so you have to respect the sentiments of that government as well. So that is important. Also, India-Myanmar relations are important because of even the last Myanmar monarch who was given asylum, who had exiled in India. So this was when the Britishers ousted him from Myanmar. He came to India, and here in Ratnagiri in Maharashtra, he stayed here. So it is his 100th death anniversary now. And even the Myanmar general would be coming here on a visit for this matter. And even the Indian last monarch, that is the last Mughal emperor of India, Bahadur Shah Zafar, after the revolt of 1857, he was also sent to Yangon, and that is where he died and is buried. So this relation also, the Myanmar old name is Burma, Rangoon, which is Yangon. So he was there in Rangoon, Bahadur Shah Zafar. If you have read modern history, you would know. So this is also one connection which we have with this country. Then the last news item is clock of aging can be reset, shows Salk Institute scientists. So this is through genetic engineering that aging process can also be reversed. So aging, a person ages, it's considered irreversible because your cells, they tire up. So this can be changed because there's a biological clock we know in the body. So that keeps a track of the cells and everything. So this biological clock can be put back. So this is through specific genes. So there are 4 critical genes which had been discovered by Japanese biologist Shinya Yamanaka. So these are called Yamanaka genes. So this discovery 10 years ago, in which the cells can be set back to the initial stage, was found. So these are the 4 critical genes. So this genetic engineering can be used and this process can be achieved. But it is seen that the experiments which have been conducted so far, so what is done is that these 4 critical genes are injected and then the cells, means adult cells, become again embryonic cells. So this is how adult stem cells technology is used, because using this Yamanaka's method only, using these 4 critical genes, the adult tissue cells can also be converted into embryonic stem cells. So this is used prominently presently. It's a routinely used method presently. But in case of aging, reversing the clock back, when this is done in a full-fledged, because this is done only in cells. At cell-based level, it's fine. Tissue cells become embryonic stem cells. But then when it is used in an organism, and when these cells, 4 critical genes are injected in them, it is seen that the clock being set back to set back again. This results in even drastic conditions seen in organisms. So this is seen like they have these cells which become quite embryonic and they proliferate, becoming cancerous too. Many animals have died in these experiments with these 4 critical genes. So that there is no chance that this can be used on humans. Presently, this research which is in news, that setting the clock back to aging, is using the same method, but they are not inserting it at full scale. When you insert it at full scale, it goes back. Adult cell becomes embryonic cell. So that is not what they are doing. What they are trying to do is they are doing partial reprogramming. So partial reprogramming is also seen, like it is seen that some animals can regrow their limb, like lizards and all. So when they can regenerate their limbs, their tails, in such organisms, the tissues at that point, they do not become completely, the adult cells there do not become completely embryonic cells, but they are in a stage midway. So such a stage midway can be achieved, and then the reverse engineering will take, the re-engineering, reprogramming would take place, and then it would be beneficial. So they're not going back to square one, but some midway, so that process of aging can be reversed. So this initiative they have taken, they have undertaken some experiments on mice. So this is still not possible that this can be used on humans as well. So there is more research required on this, but they have found a way. So this is their technique, partial reprogramming. So that is it. These are the news items for today. Thank you so much.